Heilman, let's start with you in New Hampshire. There's Biden going after Buttigieg and Bernie. Of course, I say going after. It's all this year. It's all been very mild between Democrats, and yet it hasn't. Especially even the mild attacks have not seemed to land and have not seemed to help the candidates attacking others. What do you make of Joe Biden's attacks on the other candidates yesterday? Will it have an impact? And do you sense desperation from either the Warren or the Biden camps?
So, Joe, I think that thing that happened yesterday, attacks, as you say, is a little bit maybe too strong a word by the standards of this campaign. That's an attack that Joe Biden launched. I think he's trying to bring a focus on this electability argument that the risks, as he said, of the party nominating either of the two current leaders, Bernie Sanders or Pete Buttigieg in the left and moderate lane, those are a clear reflection of one thing, which is that the Biden campaign, though they didn't get the full weight of the media crashing down on them as they would have if their fourth place finish had been reported on the night of Iowa. Everyone in politics understands how badly Joe Biden did in Iowa, how badly his operation performed, and what it means for him to come into New Hampshire after having been the front runner.
So, John, you were there for a week.
And after having been the front runner nationally and having been the front runner in Iowa.
Okay, talk fast. I want to cut you off while you're talking about how badly he did. And we're just kind of throwing that out. Joe Biden did horribly with organization, with this, with that, the other, in New Hampshire, within Iowa. He was vice president for 8 years. He's been in this sport since 1974. He's been in this has been his calling since he was a young man. How did his team perform so badly on the ground after decades of political experience?
Well, honestly, Joe, I mean, I think we've had this conversation many times over the course of the last year, and I, for a year, said I thought that Iowa was Joe Biden's Achilles heel, and that the polling there, where he was at various places throughout the year, toward the end, except for in Ann Selzer's polls, kept showing him leading with Bernie Sanders. I think a lot of people in politics always wondered whether that was right. You know, you remember Joe Biden, his performance in Iowa in 2008. You know, he got 2% of the vote in 2008 and had to drop out of the race the next day. It's always been a weak spot for him, and I don't think that, unlike the other three candidates, particularly Sanders and Buttigieg, and Elizabeth Warren to a large extent, they did not invest in Iowa on the ground in the way that those other candidates did. They have had money problems all throughout 2019. You can't underestimate the extent to which their financial troubles on the Biden campaign, the underperformance of Joe Biden as a fundraiser, has had an effect on everything else he's tried to do. And this whole notion of him being the most electable on a national level, it's true. He's got the broadest, among these Democrats, has had the broadest, most diverse base of support. But the idea that the Biden campaign is well set to compete across the nation in 50 states, when you understand how weak they've been financially, and particularly now how weak they are financially, staring at this New Hampshire contest, knowing that donors are watching, and having seen that performance in Iowa, the underperformance there, they're all looking at New Hampshire. So to answer your question about yesterday, the question is, Joe Biden and his team are fully aware that if Joe Biden doesn't perform extremely well here, and I think that means, I heard Mike Barnicle earlier say, if he doesn't come in second here, at worst, if he doesn't come in second here to Bernie Sanders, I think the wheels are going to come off the wagon pretty quickly. They know that. And that thing yesterday, attacking Sanders and Buttigieg, was one side of it. And Joe Biden's performance last night in the CNN town hall, where he had that long and kind of extraordinary answer about coping with stuttering as a child, is another part of it. They are trying to dig deep right now because they recognize the whole thing is on the line for them.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.